All right, Mopar people, welcome back to the channel. I'm just Mopar Joe. This is a viewer-inspired video, and luckily I'm to the point on my 512 of measuring for pushrod length. I did try to search, as did he, and I couldn't find a video on YouTube at all about finding the right length for a big block Mopar. So this might help you on other applications that have the shaft-mounted rocker as well. I'll start with just a quick list of exactly what you need. I've got the cam in the engine, obviously. Whatever cam you're going to use, whatever lifters you're going to use, because different cams might have a different base circle, so meaning the thickness right here between the actual shaft of the cam and the bottom of the lobe, the heel of the lobe. Have your cam in, lifter in. Different lifters have different depths right there where the actual ball goes in. This is a set of comps from, I believe, 2013. They got a date. Anyway, so the depth right there matters. That's going to make up your push rod length. These are just different things to consider here. Also, you need your head gasket. You don't have to have your head gasket, but it's going to give you a little different reading. So if you know, if they say 30 thousandths thick gasket or 40 thousandths thick gasket, this is a Fel-Pro 1009. It's already been compressed. You can see my kind of dimples right there to show that. So I'm going to put the actual head on that I'm going to use on this engine, and I'm going to set up some checker springs on it. So this will be Trick Flow 270s. This is a low deck 400, obviously. And it's going to get a 512 kit. You don't have to have the rotating assembly in yet to do your push rod length, because I need to get these ordered, because by the time they get here, I'll probably have this thing built. I've also started my rust seal from KBS Coating, so I'm going to actually paint my actual Hemi orange on top of this. So ignore that. This is getting Gliptol, so ignore how rusty and crusty it looks. I know somebody may question why it looks like that, but right now it's fluid-free, oil-free. Back to the video. Head gasket, let's get our head on with the 2 checker springs. I'm checking number 3 just because for camera's sake, it'll be easier for me to show you the angles of that. I got the 270 on the engine. I got 2 bolts holding it on right now that are basically hand tight where the head won't fall off. First thing we need to do is check the pattern on the stem of these valves with the rocker arms that we plan on using. And I'll show you why in just a second. So here's a little blast from the past. These are the Crane gold rockers that, if you're an older Mopar guy, you've been in this a little while, you have seen these, you might have used them. They used to be awesome, great rockers. Don't exist anymore that I know of. So if you bolted, this is just an old piece of broken shaft that I had, and I have these 2 down. I think this is either a Mancini copy of the Harlan Sharp, which Harlan Sharp makes the Mancini red rockers, or it's an old Dove rocker. What we got to do is check the pattern on the valve stem right now, that tip. You set that, and then we do our length in a minute, and you end up with bad geometry right here at the valve. You just bought $300 push rods or whatever they were that are wrong for your engine. So eventually you may have to shim up, right? Which B3 does sell an awesome kit. You got to send them some measurements. I've done a video on that before, and I can put a link to it in the description of this video. And it will actually move the rocker shaft further up and out, or center it wherever it needs to be. I think the other one's actually moved it up and in some to bring the roller to kind of true center. But right now, if we just do our slide here, and I can roll the roller, I can do both these, and you can see the difference between rockers. And I know these are 1/6s, it says it on top. I'm not sure about these red ones. I think they're just 1/5s from a while back. Hold that up. So on the Crane right now, it is actually uphill, up on the higher side of center. On this red rocker, it is almost exactly centered right there. So as the cam lifts, that roller is going to roll, and it goes outward. I'll show you again. Okay, even if we just slightly there, see how it goes outward And as it comes back up, it goes inward, out and in, out and in. And I can hold it. This is just a demonstration. I can hold it and spin the wheel again, and eventually we'll have a new pattern that emerges on the stem itself. There you are. So you can just barely see it's rolled out to right here. So overall, this is not truly terrible, but from there to there. Now let's look at the crane and see what happens. I've only represented a little small amount of lift, but you see we've gone from up here to there. So this one's on just kind of the high side of what I would consider correct. Everybody has varying opinions on this, and I have plenty of commenters that know stuff and want to share it, so be sure and check out the comments. But overall, I wouldn't be scared to use either one of these rockers on this right now, but we have to double check it with our actual checking push rod now. Here's a couple examples of push rod checkers. This is a comp 7719, which does the 8.8 to the 9.8. I'm assuming this is too long for our build, but we're going to try it. Here's my old crispy, crusty Faithful here. You can make your own at home out of an old push rod, just like I did. It screws out. You can thread your nuts. This is actually a lot more rigid than this is, but you know, if you're spinning an adjuster, this actually spins with it, so you got to really be careful. But you'll definitely have to measure this later with your calipers. Whereas if you like have this one and it's 8.8, it has the little lines on it here you can read. So there's 8.9, 900, 9.1, etc. So that's a quick and easy tool to use. These came with the PRW rockers, so they give you the stuff to measure your own push rods there. But yeah, that'll get you going. Get yourself a push rod checker and get it in the engine. So here's a good old Harbor Freight caliper. Slide it out, go right to the bottom, press it down. 139, 139 thousandths, almost 140. We can try it again. $139, and my battery may be dying. So there it is. You know the depth now of that, so whenever you call Smith Brothers or whoever, you can tell them that's what that is. I went ahead and swapped to two Crane Gold rockers and actually oriented them so that they are correct with the adjusters inside. Anyway, I am able to use my comp push rod adjuster here, and here's how it works. I'm going to go to the back side of this lobe. So that is the intake lobe. See how the nose is coming up here. We go right around, be sure we're on the back side. The lifter doesn't move for a while, you can see. There it starts to move. So as long as you're on that back side somewhere, you're good. And now we're going to roll out our adjuster. I have this set to where there's only about a half a thread showing. We might want to end up taking a little bit more out, and I'll show you why in just a second. It's easier to show you than it is to tell you. You just turn, and the push rod gets longer. There's 0 lash is what we want. I can show you multiple angles of that. It's at 0, there's no slack in it at all. So now we're going to rotate around, and I want you to watch right here where the ball and the cup meet. It's kind of like a fulcrum. Right there. Okay. So you can see how hardcore that's broken over, right? That's really, it's kind of drastic, and I know this is just an example, but you know, Harlan Sharp says on theirs, just go hang out one thread. We're going to end up taking a little bit more off this one, and I'll let you see the angle then. Also, we can measure at the valve. This cam is not the cam that's going to live in this engine, but I am using it for mock-up today. Because if it says on the card, this should be 532 or this should be 540, whatever. This is a 1/6 rocker. We'll have to do our math again. So we are about to measure the lift at the valve with the adjustable push rod in. And I'm going to show you again how the adjustable push rod works. I've got one thread hanging out the bottom, and Harlan Sharp says 1 to 3 threads hanging out the bottom. of their rocker arms. So what I'm going to ideally do is get this value that'll be on that dial indicator as close as I can to what it says on the cam card, or what it says 1.5 ratio times 0.349, excuse me, 0.359 is what my card said. So I need to redo my math on that because that was from the other rockers. Our value is close to that as we can using the dial indicator. It's not going to be perfect because the geometry of this shaft is not perfect in comparison to the valve tip and the lifter angle and the push rod angle. All that's not perfect. I can't make it perfect without a magical shim kits and whatever. And B3 says they don't like Harlan Sharp, having to correct Harlan Sharp rockers. I think it's going to work really well. I love Harlan Sharp rockers, and that's what TrickFlow wants you to use with their head. So let's make it as nice as we can, and hopefully it helps my man out there that needs to know how to measure for push rod. Ignore the indicator for now. Here's a push rod checker. We have our one thread hanging out there. I'm going to screw this until I get 0 lash. There's 0 lash at the valve. I'm going to 0 my indicator, just like that. I'll bring it around where you can watch it. There's 551, 552, and we're going back down. I'll bring it back to 0. That left me 0.02 on here. I might have about 0.02 error in my measuring technique, whatever you want to call that. Let's do the math with the cam card. So we actually need 539 with this. And this is a solid roller lifter on a hydraulic roller cam right now. That may be throwing our results a little bit, because traditionally on a solid roller, you have some kind of lash. So it would be 17, 16, 18, 32, whatever it is for a specific cam. You want to plan that into your adjuster down here. I'm going to add 16 thousandths. I'm going to give this a little bit of lash here. Check my push rod. I'm leaving it as long as it will go for now. And I'm going to double check my lift at the valve right here. So currently I have given this 16 thousandths cold lash. You can see this little bit of movement right here. Just a little bit. I'll 0 back out. Come on. Now we see what we got. We should be closer to 539 now. $524. 524.5. Watch this. Other way. That gives me 539 right there. Let's rotate it back around slowly. See if we can repeat the process with that length. See, we got 2 thousandths error. Coming up. 538. 538 was our max. Coming back down, 0 with a 5. That is it. I'm gonna leave that push rod exactly alone. I'm gonna pop these rockers off. I'm gonna measure that push rod right now, and that's what this engine would need with that cam, these lifters, and that rocker. There's that push rod again. You can see they have little tiny marks on here, and currently mine is a 1/4 turn past the little marks. The push rod itself is advertised as 8.8 to 9.8 measuring ability. So if you go around one full turn, that'd be 8.9, 9, 9.1. With that being said, I can call this 8.85 if I want to. That'd give me just barely slightly longer. That would be fine. So I cheated a little bit. I got on 440 Source. They have some push rods that are already made up for common sizes. There's 8.905. I was measuring at 8.85. So 100 thousandths difference. I'll show you what it looks like. I went ahead and set my adjuster to 8.905, which is 8.905 thousandths, whatever. There it is. Almost a thread hanging out. The problem is that's still slightly too long. We're going to have a solid roller in this anyway. We're going to have lash. So backing off that, giving it to lash may run the actual adjuster up in here too far, and then you don't have your full thread showing. So just something to keep in mind. It also mentioned that push rod was for an RB block, but we've got max wedge port heads on a B block. A little bit of difference. You're better off getting the right stuff ordered, and be careful with your wall thickness. Like if you call Smith Brothers or whoever you want to, tell them what spring pressure you're running, tell them what cam you're running, whatever, and the length of the push rod will matter. They may want a thicker wall with a longer length. And big solid roller cam, you better have a thicker wall. You're better safe than sorry. So also, if you don't have checker springs like I'm using today, I won't hold it against you. I didn't own any for many years. And I would just check the length of that push rod on the heel of the cam, backside of the cam, and order the push rods and go. So it is nice to have them, be able to see your sweep pattern, but be sure you check the geometry on that sweep pattern before you order your push rods, because if it's hanging off the other side, if it is hanging off this end, rolling off, you may want to add a valve lash cap. You can see these retainers are made for a small cap here. That would actually raise your roller up some. And if you're going to run caps, measure with the caps on. Don't forget that. Anyway, I appreciate y'all watching. I'm not the authority on Mopar valve train or Mopar engines or any of that, but I've had a few successful ones, and this one's going to be successful as well. As soon as I get the correct cam in here with the correct lifters, I'll measure just like this real quick, and I'll have a great idea of what I can call and get ordered. So I appreciate y'all watching, and I will catch you next time.
Just Mopar Joe gets there first and by a bunch, but follows through.